The rabbis believe that everything will begin and end in 2024, and the Mashiach will come immediately. Israel 365 News reports, Ephraim Palvanov, teacher and author of the blog Mayim Acronym, that is Last Waters, in his new video cites biblical prophecy and Jewish sources that describe the current wars in Ukraine and Israel as harbingers of the end of the world, for which there is direct evidence in classical Jewish literature. He said, a few weeks ago, I found something in our ancient scriptures that just blew me away, and now I'm very excited to share it. This is what Palvanov says in his video. He says, but I'll leave that for the end of the episode, so don't fall asleep. And first of all, Palvanov refers to lectures he gave 2 years ago during a pandemic in which he suggested that the world is in pre-messianic period. Now, when he says, I projected the events of the last three in my mind, then surprisingly, everything that we assumed 3 years ago practically came true, exactly year after year, says Palvanov. He referred to the famous prophecy found in many places in the Talmud and Midrash about the last 7 years before the coming of the Mashiach, or as we say, Messiah. And from this text, it has been suggested that we are in this 7-year period. As proof, Palvanov began quoting passages from the Talmud, Sanhedrin 97a. The sages taught concerning a period of 7 years, hence a cycle of the Sabbath, during which the Messiah, the son of David, will come. In the first year, this verse will be fulfilled. And I will come, and I will cause rain in one city, and I will not cause rain in another city. Amos 4:7. In the second year of this period, the arrows of famine will be released. During the third year, there will be a great famine, and men, women, and children, pious people, and their deeds will die, and the Torah will be forgotten by those who study it. During the fourth year, there will be many, but not too many. In the fifth year, there will be many of them, and they will eat and drink and be merry, and the Torah will return to those who study it. During the sixth year, heavenly voices will be heard. During the sabbatical year, there will be wars such as the war of Gog and Magog, involving the Jewish people, and within a year from the end of the sabbatical year, the Son of David will come. End quote. End quote. Therefore, in the first year of this cycle, there will be droughts in some places and floods in others. Palvanov further says, this means that there will be severe and strange weather conditions around the world. We see that's pretty common these days. And then in the second year, the arrows of famine will be shot, but this will only be a prelude to the third year, when the famine will be very severe and many people will die, says Palvanov. In 2021, we assumed that the famine was more of a symbolic interpretation and deviations, but in reality it was some kind of plague, namely a pandemic. Palvanov cited the collection of Midrash called Shir HaShirim, Song of Songs, Rabbah 2:13, which states in the name of Rabbi Chia bar Abba that before the days of Mashiach, the world will be consumed by a great plague. If it's so, then the second year, the arrows of this plague will be shot, but it will not yet be visible to the world. And then in the third year, there will be a full-scale global catastrophe in which many people will die, says Palvanov. He noted that several senior rabbis have indeed died as a result of the pandemic. The Talmud states that children will also be affected, and young people were exactly the demographic that suffered from this disease. However, lockdowns and other protection measures that have damaged education and socialization have harmed young people perhaps more than any other age group. He says, I remember that first big isolation when the kids couldn't even play in parks, and it was very unpleasant. And I know several young people who even tried, they got very depressed. The rabbi, and Palvanov says, in many ways the cure was worse than the disease. He also noted that Synagogues and churches were closed, although public events and left-wing demonstrations were allowed. So when this prophecy says that the Torah will be forgotten, that there will be less study of the Torah, that's exactly what happened. Palvanov further explained that the first year of the Sabbath cycle, according to the prophecy, corresponds to 2018, or according to the Jewish calendar, 5778. He recalled that the calendars are slightly offset because the Jewish year begins with the Jewish month of Tishri, which corresponds to around September, while the secular calendar begins in January. Therefore, the second year of the ancient prophecy would correspond to 2019, or 5779, and 2022 is the fifth year of the last 7 years. And according to the Talmud, in the fifth year, hence 2022, if we count correctly, there will be many and will eat, drink, and be merry. That's exactly what happened. In 2022, the pandemic was cancelled and life returned to normal. Then, says the Talmud, in the sixth year there will be sounds of war and rumors of war, and in the seventh a great war will break out. This is exactly what we saw in 2022 in Ukraine. And in Israel at that time, all the news showed a social breakdown with people hating each other, galloping around the streets like madmen. And there were divisions in the government, soldiers refusing to report for duty. And then we saw a shocking connection between the October 7 attack by Hamas and Muscovy, which received 3 bonuses at once. It halted the fall in its oil prices, drew U.S. attention to Israel, drawing it away from Ukraine, and caused also cries in the UN and protests around the world about the Palestinians, once again drawing the world's attention away from the atrocities being committed against the Ukrainians. Abu Marzouk, one of the leaders of Hamas, openly told the media that Moscow is the best friend of Hamas. And most interestingly, October 7, the day the degenerates attacked Israel, was the birthday of the ruler of Moscow, and the massacre of terrorists was like a gift. Another correspondence is the Midrash. Pirkei di Rabbi Eliezer, chapter 30, describes the 3 wars that the sons of Ishmael, hence the Arabs, will wage against us in the end days. 1 in the forest, alone at sea. The third is the big city. But this almost literally describes the attack by Hamas, whose attack came from 3 sides, 1 from the forest at a music festival, 1 from the sea, and a 3rd rocket hit on major cities. Palvanov also notes that Hamas attacks Israel in the last days of Sukkot, and this is a direct fulfillment of the prophecy that the final war will begin on Sukkot. And so now the most important question arises. If all the prophecies came true, if we saw correspondences between what has happened and the ancient texts, then what do the texts say about the end of it all, and how long will all this last? Palvanov quotes the Mishnah, Eduyot 2:10. Rabbi Akiva said there are 5 things that last 12 months. The judgment of the flood generation lasted 12 months. Job's trial lasted 12 months. The trial of the Egyptians lasted 12 months. The judgment of Gog and Magog in the time to come will last 12 months. So everything will end in 12 months, and Mid-Shia, Messiah, will come no later than the last day of the last 7 years, that is 2024. The maximum delay can be 1 month, since this year, according to the Jewish calendar, is a leap year and has an additional month. And this is from the big one. I've translated this for you from a Greek article. Please leave your comments, and thank you for your support. Kindly support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support, and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.